my microphone was off.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I had some troubles last time, and I was like, oh gosh, here it goes again. I think we're good now. All right.
Okay, we're at time. Ready to go, Michael?
Yeah, so I thought we would just all go to the, I'll share the notes for now. Yes, window. So let's see, I'll go to this one here. And why isn't that a link? Oh well. Hello, everyone. So I wanted to suggest, first of all, since we're a very small group and the latency to unmute yourself with the upper left mic button is high, because it builds and tears down the audio channel each time, that everyone just go and click on the mute audio on the mic button above in the left, and then please mute yourself with the microphone, the local mute on the lower right, the very bottom. That way you can just unmute yourself really quickly if you need to say something, as opposed to waiting like XML, RPC time before you can do anything. Welcome. This is the first of 2 virtual interims. The second one is on the 16th of February. And the hope is that we'll be done at that point, and we'll be in working group last call, and we won't need to have a meeting at IETF 116 in Yokohama. If that proves not to be the case, then we could talk about that. I don't know. I don't think I'll be physically present. And I don't know about the rest of you. It may be a waste of our time to try to meet physically anyway. But that's an open question. So just to remind you about the note, we have a bunch of processes and policies relating to your contributions. We have an IPR policy, and there's a whole list of different documents that apply to this. In particular, if you know of any patents or IPR relating to the document, then you are asked to please disclose it, even if it's not your IPR. Code of conduct, basically BCP 54. Please be nice to each other is the simple summary, and we're going to go on from that. So today we're going to be dealing with the with this 4122 BIS document, and we're going to be going through most of the issues and pull requests. So, guess I could turn on my video while I'm talking. With that, are there any changes to the agenda that we should talk about? Hearing none, I'm going to switch to the list of pull requests. And Kaiser, it's your show.
Yeah. Let's go bottom up.
So do you want to do you want me to share the GitHub as we go, or do you want to do that?
No, that's completely fine. What I want to do is I want to start bottom up, because specifically Jim put some notes you can see in number 35, and those are already addressed here. So
35. Okay. So you're basically saying that Jim, one is
it's later in the show. So bottom up is the right way to go here.
Okay.
So specifically tagged everything so you can nicely see what we're doing. And if I'm just going to look at 35 on my other screen, or 32. Sorry, pull request 32 kind of hits a big grouping of things. So there's some spelling errors that are caught under number 18, and number 18, if you click the commit on the right side, we can see what that is, or yeah, exactly, you can hover it. But it's basically a quick little spelling error. It's mixed case. So it's a pretty simple one to say, yes, this is probably okay to fix. Yeah, I tried to do all of my commits, like you said last time, in one at a time so we can look at diff, right? This one's just changing a mixed case, so I don't really see any problem with number 18 going into draft 1, but I just wanted to talk about it. So that's the first one. 19, we can just go down like that exactly. This one adds a forward reference to unidentifiable section to effectively allow unique identifier and kind of just or allow us to kind of have a reference. So it's just a reference addition, which shouldn't be any problem there. Number 20 moves some text, and this text specifically, when I was moving content from RFC 4122 over, I put this into a section, and when I was going through the document, I realized that we have a section on distributed node applications, right? And this text on distributed applications was way past that section. So it makes sense in the grand scheme to kind of just marry this up, put it back up there. The conversation here would be, do we need this text at all, right? And I think the text still needs to be there. It makes a lot of sense. But if we do keep it, we move it up into the distributed section. I mean, that's the first of like, okay, this isn't a draft change, or this is like just a quick little change. So no major technical changes that need to go through. And if at any point somebody has something, like I'm willing to discuss any of these. 25 is, oh, sorry, 24 is exactly, sorry, go to 24 first. I messed up.
You want 25?
Yeah, we'll do 25. That's fine. I did them in alphabetical order, but after I did that. All right, so this is a ABNF reference, and specifically, I had the wrong number. This was brought up in the last interim meeting or the last meeting we had. I just completely put the wrong RFC, so it's just a typo. So we're just pointing ABNF to the correct, like actual forward reference in all applicable sections. So it's again a nothing change. 20. Let's just go to 24 because it's on the same topic of this. I don't know why they're out of order. I committed them in the wrong order. It's the very bottom. This is the one Jim was talking about. This changes the ABNF hex formatting to actually follow RFC 5234, and this is what you were talking about, Jim, in the review of the other of Bradley's pull request. So I've already got these, so they'll get merged down, so it should be covered good. And it looks like, based on just my checks of the two, it looks like it's solid. And you know, the specific thing that you were talking about was just adding the star in there, and that is correct. So you're right, and I did change that. Just want to let you know that I did address it, so we don't have to address it in that pull request.
So what's the point of putting the star in there?
Specifically, the star is how you designate in the current RFC draft for ABNF that there are 4 of the hex octets, right? So that's 4 hex octets, 2 hex octets, 2 hex octets, 2, and then 6, right? That's the way you kind of properly designate that as per the RFC itself.
The red text says this. The green text says there are at least 4 hex octets before the first dot and at least 2 hex octets before the second dot, and so on. So I think this change is all wrong.
So I think that there's 2 things happening. I think that the syntax for hex octet is not ABNF correct. Like, that's just nonsense.
It is.
Okay. So the change, though, to say there's 4 hex octets, I think, Karsten, you're saying mandates that there be 4 and there couldn't be 3. So if you had a leading 0 or something that you deleted, that wouldn't fit into this pattern.
No, what I'm saying is that this change says you can have more than 4 hex octets before the first dash, and then more than 2 before the second dash.
So
because the star really means from 2, and the from here is 4, and the 2 is infinity because you didn't put in a 2.
It's okay, understood. Yeah, and
So
that was kind of my reservation on that in the first place. A, B, and F. A, B, and F. Because the first.
Why can't I do a suggestion here? I wonder. I wonder why. Anyway,
I think I'm
okay.
just, yeah.
It doesn't
And
let me
that was
do
my
it.
question, was because the very first RFC, actually Carson did have it as 4 hexoctet, 2 hexoctet, 2 hex.
Yeah.
I just copied from there, and then I got a bunch of recommendations that it needed to be 4 star. So I reviewed it and was like, star looks relevant, so that added logic that the star is not present and not
Yeah.
correct. I agree.
So what, we
I'm
need
fine with
something like
removing
this
it.
or something? I don't know
No,
what to
4
write
4
it.
by itself should be fine. 4
Yeah, you could
hexoctet.
also say 4 star 4, which is kind of redundant. So why
Yeah.
not just use the existing 4 hexoctet?
The 4 hex octet was actually correct before.
Yes,
Maybe we just do, can we put a space there?
I don't
I
believe
think you
can
can.
put a
Yes.
space.
Okay, that would be clearer to me.
Let me check that.
That
So
it's
my
not some
recommendation
other
would
symbols.
be to always use a tool to check these things. You should never
Yeah,
be in a position.
I ran it through both, and it didn't. Yeah, obviously, the syntax, if it was correct in both scenarios, it wouldn't give me any errors. I just don't know which one's more correct.
Yeah.
So you need to use a tool like ABNF Gen, which gives you
Okay.
example instances. And then you would suddenly find that it generates something with 67 hex octets before the first dash. And you would know
Okay.
that the new stuff is wrong.
Okay, ABN. Okay, gotcha. Yep, I'll absolutely check that out. Thank you, Carson. Appreciate that feedback.
Yep.
And
This one.
my main comment there was that you have a duplicate of this text basically over in the registration section, and that the two should be the same, whatever it is. I'm definitely not an ABNF
understood.
expert, but whatever we say here, it should say there as well.
Absolutely. Yep, I'm tracking on that too, and that's a good call out. I forgot that the registration template has its own little ABNF. I got it. Good feedback.
So we should just keep it in one place if we can, I think, because I don't think the registration template will be removed, will it? By IANA? Is that an IANA P thing?
I thought so. I'm all confused about the way that this is registered because it isn't currently registered with IANA, and I'm not sure where the registry actually lives.
It's in the Yearn namespaces with IANA, and that's the only place I know. If I've checked that specifically, if you look up the Yearn namespaces, it has it registered there, and that's the only place it is registered.
I couldn't find it
in the URL. Okay, URN registration has an ABNF. Oh, right, because we have a scheme for that.
Yep. And
so if we make a change, we should have we should somehow update that piece then. Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. So I can fix that. Good action item. Appreciate the feedback there. I think we're good to go to the next item then on that list, which was we stopped at we deviated at 24, so 27.
Well, one quick thing, make sure to go back and finish your review. Otherwise it won't actually leave the comments. So if you click on review changes and then comment.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what you're saying. Yeah. All right. Boom. And
Yep.
27.
27. Yep. So this one is very simple. It's implementation specific. We put a should, and it needs to be a must. It goes into our larger should and must and verbiage review that I'll probably end up doing a draft 2 or draft 3, but this is pretty simple. Like if we look at the document, it can be anything in UUIDREV version 8. So a must makes sense. Like don't assume what you know is in there because we don't know. Everything's very specific to an implementation. Don't assume
I think the other argument for the change is that whenever you see a should, there must be some exception. Otherwise, it's a must.
Exactly. There's no real exception for why you wouldn't. So it's a pretty simple verbiage change. 29 is a typo. It's a really old typo. Back when UUID version 8 was specific to alternate time-based, and we relaxed it to be just any old UUID you cook up for experimental or very specific purposes. we just yank that out because it's now used for anything, right? So, you know, time-based doesn't need to be there. So it's just leftover garbage, more or less. 30 is a descriptor that effectively changes a few things in the UID version 7 space, and it just adds some clarifications as to what's going on, specifically for some feedback from testers out in the field and implementation folks, where they may have been thinking about old version 7 and some of the different levels of bit trickery we were doing, and just being able to call out that it is milliseconds, and then calling out where the counters go if they want to do some counters in randomness, inside the randomness, some sub randomness counter logic that they want to embed, like for their own application, whatever that may be. We're just calling out a little bit of where those go and then the forward references to those sections. So just, again, no technical change, just better clarification up front. And that should have been the last one for that pull request. So that basically hits all of those. And obviously I can change the ABNF as an option, and then we can get that into draft, to this draft specifically for draft 1 to push. And my goal for this is, if you guys are okay with these, you know, we submit draft by like the end of the week, like Friday or something. If there's not a ton of changes, we can get draft 1 buttoned up, stamped, and out, and then we can start working on draft 2 stuff, if that's
That sounds awesome.
Cadence. Okay. So let's go to the next pull request, which I believe the next 2 are Brad's.
One
So-
comment on draft 1 is, let's, I mean, we've got a bunch of things that are queued up. I'm not sure that we should just push out this draft 1 with this one pull request.
I mean, I was going to do, if all of these are okay, plus A, B, and F at the end of this, then I think we, you know, my logic is we can get all of this stuff in and then start addressing some other things, but I'll deviate to you guys what you want ultimately. If you want to wait till the end of the month and we keep iterating, or wait till the next interim for draft 1, that's fine.
So not wait to the next interim, because then we won't get the cycle review. I'm happy with you posting a document the end of Friday. Yeah, great. If you know, you have a stealth snowstorm and it winds up Monday, whatever. Okay. But I think that integers are cheap, and being able to see a succession of diffs and an energy helps people review things well. So I would agree with Jim that, you know, maybe that's not, we should do more than just this one, but I think that's what you're saying anyway. We should do more than just
I was saying
yeah.
32 through 37 all just get, well, at the end of this, at Friday, I fix whatever we say do here. All of this that's in the open PRs gets bundled up. That's draft 1. Then we start the pull request and changes for draft 2 for all the stuff that kind of was going on the email thread as of yesterday that we haven't had a chance to really digest, or even this morning.
Fantastic.
So let's go to
next.
21. Yeah, 34 here, which is issue 21. Brad updated. If you click, just do files changed, or even click on the commit with either one. This specifically is changing. Oh gosh, Brad, I can't remember if you want to speak to it.
I'm trying to remember too.
Take it in.
But
it's all verbiage.
Yeah, clock sequence. So there was a clarification as to like how to do the clock sequence.
I have to go back.
I think there were a bunch of. I think what it is. Yeah, I think what it is that each time there were some exact rules in the earlier one. That's what this retain the old MAC address behavior is. But that's talking about the node. I apologize. I trying to remember the context of where this came up. Is there a way to see in here what problem this was solving? Does it have a link to like what we were fixing with this?
Yeah, if you click 21, you can see Lyos's specific comment about what we're trying to fix specifically. He was the one who recommended the change. He's not here, but Lyos has been a very good resource throughout the previous drafts for feedback. So we definitely value his input.
Right. Okay, got it. So there's two things here. Yeah. So the node, what they're saying is that in the MAC address version, the node was like a static value. So he's saying if you're going to tell people to regenerate the node with a random number, you should be very clear that this is every single new UUID. So that's one specific thing that we're fixing. And then I think on the clock sequence, it's a similar thing where there was logic from the old document that was saying, you know, the clock sequence should count up in this way. And he's saying like, look, if you're going to, again, same thing. If you're going to say it's pseudorandom, you should say it's pseudorandom for every single new value generated. I think that was the point there. Yeah, pseudorandom value for each new UUID 6 generated. And then if you want to, you can go and do the old thing. That's optional. That was the point of that.
So let me ask a question about the word should. Is there an exception?
It sounds like the exception is legacy behavior from previous implementations, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So could we write that here?
Yeah, I mean, we have the
Something like-
implementations made. We have that it's may choose to retain. Well, I guess, hang on, that's not right.
Do not do this. Do not reset on each UUIDV6 generated.
How about if you just say, however existing implementations may choose to retain? Does that cover it?
I guess it's already kind of there in the tail end of that sentence where we say, hey, if you don't want to do this, the may option is what you can do instead. So the may, like,
Okay.
it's saying like that is the alternative. Is the tail
That is
end
the
of
alternatives
sentence.
here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it is there. I guess if it's not super important, like super clear called out, we can change the verbiage. But the alternative is the other way.
Yeah. Just for sorry, just to clarify one more thing. What happens is UIDV6 is specifically just a bit swap from the UUID, the other UUIDV1, I think. So because of that direct translation, we're saying there's a lot of people are going to implement this by taking a UUIDV1 and swapping some bits around. And we're trying to communicate that it's totally okay to just keep whatever the prior implementation was doing.
Yeah, bit swizzle what we care about in the timestamp. If you're doing one of those other things, just keep it the same. And that's all that clarification is.
Okay. So I don't know if you know this. If you tell this, if you put a message in like this, close here, then when we merge it, it'll actually close the thing. And so my question is, are we satisfied and can we merge this now as a group?
I think it passes my eye test.
Any objections?
Good with me.
Good. Let's
Go
do
for
that.
it.
It's going to kick
Does
off the whole
close work, or do you
CI/CD
have to say
pipeline.
closes?
I clean them up later, guys. Don't fret on it. Yeah, you can knock labels on the side, or you can. There's a bunch of different ways to do
Close is supposed to work, but you're right, it didn't. Close issue. All right, we got it.
Cool.
Okay.
So the 35 is, we had a meeting last time about moving this template and then making sure it fills out and is correct. So we yanked out the to-do, we put it in the right spot. The actual to-do here specifically is around the ABNF. So all this is updated namespace registration template with all the right things, pointing to the right RFCs, all that fun stuff. And it's 90% the same from what I can see. We just moved it to the right spot, and then we need to call out the ABNF, like we said. We need to make sure the ABNF specifically is in one spot. So that's really the only item before we merge this.
Isn't this wrong here? Wrong RFC?
So
Yeah, and that's because I think we the way we have it merged up. they all came from the same doc because they had opened. But yeah, we can fix that, and we can fix the ABNF.
So should I just, it sounds like my suggestions are all wrong there. Should I just delete that?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can delete those.
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah, I got them.
You,
Yep. So that's the. We can.
Is
put a little
there
finishing
really
touch
no
on this.
way that we can have the registry point to this document rather than repeating the ABNF?
I believe I got to think about how I'm going to do it, but like if the ABNF needs to be part of this doc, and I'll go review the 52, 34, whichever RFC it is. If ABNF needs to be part of this, then I'll remove it from the top and make sure it's here. If it doesn't, I'll yank it from here.
Right?
Right?
So I'm just thinking the
That's-
namespace registration template, you know, this is the template, but we have a lot of, we easily can make, you know, provide, say, instead of the formal definition, it's provided in this document, right? In section blah, 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 rather than repeating the ABNF. I realize that's an indirection, but
yeah,
I think if someone has to fix the ABNF again, it won't be so weird.
agreed. Yeah, I can do that. I can definitely put I guess in this case, ABNF's way at the end, so we can put a backwards reference to the ABNF. It came in the section where ABNF was defined. So yeah, just note that put a backwards reference. We only have one ABNF.
All right, is there any other comments about this? Sorry, it's not on the screen here anymore.
I think we can move to the next pull request, which I believe is from Corbin on the meeting. Real quick one, nice catch, Corbin.
on that last, I'm sorry, on that last one, what's the action on that? Are we gonna just merge it subject to some change, or are we gonna hold on to it?
Yes, so we're going to, Kaiser is going to fix remove the duplicate ABNF and make it a reference, and then we're going to merge it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do two phase. I'm gonna fix the ABNF and undo the commit that I had before, and then I'm gonna basically backwards reference to one spot that has ABNF rather than have it floating around in two. So Corbin specifically was fixing a typo in the MD5 low, where it was the SHA one, and I copy and pasted from the UUID version 3 into 5, and I didn't change one of the descriptors for the field. So we're fixing the descriptor here. There's one conversation on there that's new 6 minutes ago from a gentleman. If we could look at that real quick, because that'll be another change we should probably need to hit. It is also, I believe in the same section, I pointed to the MD5 security. Security.
Well, actually, the RFC number is right. The RFC number is right, but it still says MD5 in the text.
Yeah, it's a product of me copy and paste in the same section and then tweaking things. And
should it say SHA-1 low?
Yes. It should. That spot should just say SHA-1. Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah, SHA-1 is probably better. I mean, SHA-1 is kind of dead as well, but let's ignore that for the moment.
So I had in my pull request made a different change that you probably shouldn't accept then, which is that I had thought that this text was just misplaced and moved that sentence back to the MD5 section because there wasn't a similar statement there. I didn't actually check what the RFC referred to, but because I assumed it was MD5 considerations. So, you know, whatever the right thing
There's
is there.
one. Sorry, there's one more SHA low. That's right above that. We may want to change to SHA 1 low for consistency.
If we change it to SHA-1 low, we got to change the whole section to SHA-1 because like there's SHA-1 low, there's SHA-1 high, like the whole thing. You see, so yeah, I think if we're going to put SHA-1, I'll change it everywhere. So that's
Yep,
completely
makes sense.
understandable.
We just didn't have any other choices before.
Yeah, exactly.
I can make that change in my pull request if you'd like.
If you would like, that would save me some time. I appreciate that. Just give that SHA-1 section a good once over. Anything references SHA-1, make it reference SHA-1. Okay, so a few more changes there, but I think we're in agreement on what needs to be changed. So that makes sense. And then the next one is Jim's changes.
And I used a completely different style. I took a lot of things that I thought were, you know, rather than create an issue for every typo, which really doesn't scale.
Yeah.
I opted to create a pull request that basically just describes, you know, what the kind of the specific changes that I thought that I had. And some of them are wrong and some of them are right, but I mean that rather than try and create a lot of individual work for each individual change, this seemed like a better approach to me. I don't know. I haven't used GitHub in the context of IETF before, although I've used it a lot elsewhere.
I think this is just a fine way to do it, and I don't think we want to review 27 comma moves, but it's always good to.
I want to look at the MD5 specifically. That's the only one that he commented that might need to go. And if so, Jim, you could just, you know, basically just
I can
commit
push
that this one
another.
does that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I think I gave it a look, and this is exactly what Robert has done for us in the past as well. He's done a great job with just fixing my grammar because I'm terrible at it. So I appreciate the grammatical checks. Always open to those changes.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these need to be SHA-1 is what you're saying.
I think the other gentleman's going to catch that in his, so you can just leave it be for the moment.
Okay, I would suggest we just merge one and then do a pass to fix MD5. Any objections to merging this as it is?
Well, it's going to have
the MD5.
It's going to have conflicts with the. It's probably not mergeable right now because it's the things that you've already merged are going to conflict with it.
I don't know. We'll find out. I think that if we merge this first, we'll be better off. If not, I guess Kaiser will deal with the conflict, right?
I'll merge them in a very, very specific way. I'm pretty good at the staple merger, so I'll handle the merging. We're good there.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, so if you say
and
it's
it
good,
does say it's conflicting. Yep, there you go. So you'll have to do that.
Exactly. I'll go in there and I'll fix them all up. So don't worry. So those are the main items that we had from the last intern between now. And that'll give us I think a good base draft 1 that we can start iterating on draft 2. Specifically, there was an email from Jim. I don't know if we want to talk about that since we have time, that went over some just general topics, and I gave it a good reply, or else we could just, you know, defer to the thing. But that one's going to spawn off, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 different issue trackers that we can track. And I think, and the consensus I have is Jim found a lot of good items in his review, and I think they're things that we should address. And rather than delay draft 1, I'd like to just get draft 1 out, and then I can iterate on those in draft 2, and maybe we can talk about them the next interim, or we can have some further discussions about specific points on the, with draft 1 being out.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, these were the things that I wasn't as clear on what the appropriate resolution on these is. Many of them, some of them are straightforward, like the binary representation. I think you can just put that in 2 lines. Just put a carriage return in the middle of it, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, it looked like they wanted a slash at the end, kind of like you do in like a Unix shell, to indicate that there's like, it doesn't stop here. But I'll do it as per whatever the RFC doc says. And it looked like it was just a trailing slash to indicate that. One thing I did want to comment is Brufa, Robert specifically on the call, has a typo called out in section 33. I'll have to double check if that was caught in the review that you did, Jim. If so, we could probably close 33. But if not, I'm gonna sneak that into draft 01 because it's just a typo fix. But I'll merge that in there. So 33 specifically is probably going to get in draft 01, so I can close that out.
33.
And that should clean up 90. It's the third from the top.
There we go. Oh yeah.
And then
Sorry, talking about issue 90?
sorry, issue 33.
33, yeah,
That
okay.
was one that I haven't made the change yet. But it's super simple. It's a typo.
Right.
If we haven't already hit it in Jim's review, I'll make sure that we change that as well.
Okay. Here
if-
is your reply to Jim's email for the rest of the group if you're looking for it.
Yeah, so I'm going to create some issue trackers for these. I can kind of go through the logic just in case we want to have any discussion right now, just since we have a little bit of time.
Is there something you wanted to discuss about in this? That's what you're trying
It's
to
up
say?
to the group. If you want to,
Yeah.
we want to discuss each one, we have time. If not,
We have 20 minutes scheduled. Of course, if we're done, then let's not beat the dead horse. So,
Well, let me kind of hit a couple of the ones that I think are more important. One of them has to do with the what is it? Trying to find the document that where the timestamp and version number are merged there, and
Yeah.
that was kind of the way it was represented in version 1, time high inversion. And
yes, sir.
so, yeah, I realized that was the way it was done in version 1. It's very confusing the way it is. I mean, you're basically deciding to merge 2 things into a field. I would recommend that, like for version 1, you put in a version field, call the other field time high, actually shorten the whatever it is, clock sequence high res that also includes the variant bits, and and explain in the text that this was, this concatenated with the version field was referred to as time high inversion in previous versions of the document. I think, for people that are familiar with the previous version, that provides the continuity, but this, having fields that contain 2 completely different things is very confusing to somebody that's just reading this for the first time. Other thoughts?
seems like a good description to me. I can see why they might have done it this way, because they just wanted to describe octet pieces, and that's a mix of different things in one space.
Yes.
But
Yes, they were doing.
I agree with you, Jim.
Yeah, I do generally agree. I kind of got into this UUID specification stuff because of research on UUIDs, partially because of this confusion around mixing of fields. So even in some of my articles that I wrote about UUIDs, I like visually separated them out, even though it's not quite that way.
Yeah, we do visual, because I hated it too. Just my 2 cents. Anything that was created by me and Brad new did not multiplex fields like that. And I agree we can remove it. That will have some rippling changes throughout the document that will need to be vetted and double checked to make sure that they're good and they're correct, right? Technical things will have to be, really put a fine microscope to, but I'm on board with changing it too. So that's my vote.
Yeah, we might need to come up with a good way to communicate some of that stuff. Like what's currently says octet number might need to be like octet number 5, 3 most significant bits or something like that. We'll have to figure out how to fit it into where we have those slots right now. But assuming we can solve that problem, I think it's a good idea to fix it.
Okay, I already have an action to create a tracker there. Okay, Jim, are there any other specific ones on here that you wanted to call out to have a quick discussion?
Yeah, let me just kind of are nil UUID and max UUID actually used anywhere, and is this the right place to specify them? I know they were in the previous version.
Yes, well, max is new. Nil was in the previous, and there are from, I believe, Lios or maybe Sergi looked. I don't remember the exact gentleman who looked at it, but there was a person who reviewed some libraries and they saw these carved out. And the idea was, well, if they're carving out the minimum, we should carve out the maximum as well, just so that people know that these are special use case scenarios. It is kind of a weird thing, but I don't think we remove nil. I think it has to be there, and max does have some logic. I think the main point that has been brought up now is in the variant section. Like you said, they're not part of our variant, but we're kind of touching them. Do we call that out? And the issue tracker kind of goes into the weeds a little bit, and I kind of molded over. I think if we just put a one-liner, something in the variant section that says, hey, by the way, this spec also defines these 2 UUIDs in these spaces, we should be okay. And really, it's just one more. We're just giving it better clarification. That's the best way to solve that, but still be compliant and make everybody happy.
Okay. Okay, understood about UUID version 5 being in the previous one, and I had not realized that was the case. I forgot where the changes happened. Oh, hold on, something's trying to change.
That's the problem with 3 and 5 is they're muddied up and very poorly described in the old document. So they get glossed over a lot. 1 and 4 are really the focus of that document, and 3 and 5 just kind of get a little bit of text. So we expanded upon those nicely, I believe, in this one.
What do we think about adding a SHA-256 UUID? I mean, I'm not convinced that there's a particular the way that we use SHA-1 here is a particular problem, but there are a lot of people that look at anything that has SHA-1 in it, just like they look at anything that has a Unix epoch timestamp on it, and they say, "Ooh, that's not good." So
yeah, we need to either say it's not a problem, or because of how we're using it, we're not using it for its cryptographic pre-image resistance. We're using it as a, essentially it's a hash, right? A non-cryptographic hash. And we're just using it for its distribution. So we just need to say something like that. And I think that's fine, but you're right. Otherwise we're going to we'll get some review comments later on about this.
Yeah.
And I did test SHA-256 when I was reverse engineering and kind of doing some independent testing on 3 and 5 and looking at various libraries that do, the SHA and the MD5 variants. and kind of just comparing the results and looking at the code and just kind of understanding what prior art is. I did cook up a SHA-256 and thought, hey, this makes sense, but I don't know if the effort's there, because those two UUID variants or versions aren't the most ubiquitous out there in the first place.
So let me ask a different question. Someone's coming along, Shaw writing new code, and SHA-1 has been removed from their libraries. And they're like, well, I don't want to stick it back in just to create a UUID. Right? Because then I'll get into trouble with other parts of my audit process.
Yeah.
So, what happens if someone just says, I'll just use SHA-256 instead?
Hey guys, this is Robert here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in with a little bit. So if I remember correctly, I'll get to that question in just a moment. The research we did showed that the namespace IDs, both V3 and V5, were like 1% of use cases. So they're pretty minimal in terms of real world usage. My take on this spec, and Kaiser, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this issue of the SHA-1, or the hash to use for the namespace IDs, was pretty far out on the edge of discussion and interest in all of the discussion that led up to this. I don't think I can recall any conversation where people were concerned with the quality of the namespace UUIDs that were in the original spec, other than MD5 had already been deprecated at that point. To your specific question about what somebody would do if they wanted a SHA-256 namespace UUID, my answer to that would be that's actually a pretty good use case for the version 8, which is the experimental or the vendor-specific UUID.
Okay. Well, what I'm really trying to figure out is if there's someone that's coming along and they go, but I'm not allowed to have a SHA-1 library. Right?
Yeah, we could put verbiage like Robert said to steer towards version 8 for that use case specifically. It says, hey, like you could do that in this, right? Like kind of as a how do you handle that scenario? I think that makes sense. And I will also just comment that yes, Robert is correct. Throughout all of our conversations, there was very zero to none on the namespace based, other than how it's laid out in the previous document is terrible. And it needs work there. It needs elbow grease because it's very bad in this document. So that's really where the focus was. Not any different types, nothing like that. Just that this was very hard to read.
And I'd also like to just add that there are also a lot of implementations that just choose not to implement those versions for that exact reason. And they're just like, this is old stuff. We don't need this. We can just leave it out. Okay.
Yeah, I had a hard time finding libraries to do prior art on, and I think I found a bug in the underlying Linux.
Unix are there communities where a specific UUID format is mandated, version rather is mandated?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, so people could just use a different one as long as they have a UUID. They're good, right?
Yeah, I think in general the choice of version is very sort of driven by the requirements of the specific application. I don't know of like sort of official communities that mandate one specific version or another.
Well, yeah, okay.
It just influences how you call the library to generate what you're going to get back, right? You want random, you call the version 4 to get random, and that's kind of the gist, I believe. Like inside of sorry, go ahead, Jim.
The main exception I can think is for some applications might really prefer monotonic as opposed to random. And so you'd want particular versions for those.
And that's on the generation side. And I think that's absolutely right. And that typically comes up of whoever's writing the code to generate the UUID has to choose the right thing for that application. And then everybody else just says, cool, they gave me a UUID and that's my unique identifier and doesn't care what type it is.
Well, on the receiving side, you might want to have have a clue as to whether it's monotonic or not.
Right, which is why the version number is there, so that you can, key off of that and
Right.
do different things.
Yeah, I have a little bit of concern about overloading version 8 for that reason, just because it doesn't really give you any clue about any characteristics of the UUID. But understand that it's good to have something for for a vendor specific one or for future use or whatever. But I'm a little concerned that we're overloading it with a lot of use cases here.
Yeah, and right, I think that we do have text in there that says specifically for version 8 that, don't assume anything about it, right? And version 8 works, and maybe this is text we add, but version 8 works within your application context. Really, it's not meant to be sent around. It's not meant to be informed with other folks. Like, for example, I've been doing research here at Cisco on UUID usage, and it's everywhere, right? So I've been looking at products that involve databases that have log sets and data sets and big massive amounts of UUIDs across the different spaces, and just trying to understand how they're used within all of our products and applications. And they're all within the application context for 95% of scenarios, where you really only care about putting a unique identifier on some data set, on some database item, and nobody else needs to know, right? And a version 8 overloaded with 20 different things doesn't affect anybody because nobody else really needs that. There's some scenarios where you're sending it places, but then it's an opaque string of data that we're not doing anything with, right? It's not like I informatted or I did not have the correct format on like an IPv6 address or something, right? Where it's going to cause downstream issues. It's just a value that sits there. So you don't really have some of those problems overloading version 8, in my opinion. So it does help us extend this spec, because sure, we make a version 9 SHA-256. Well, in 6 years, SHA-256 is gone, just as an example, and SHA-512 is the new golden standard, right? Because of, for whatever reason. Now we have to make a version 10, and we only have so many versions. So the idea behind version 8 was also to increase this spec's lifetime, make sure that we don't have to keep updating and creating versions with a very finite version space.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to know whether you could just within the existing namespace version, whether you could just use SHA-256 and no one would notice or care. And what you're telling me is that sometimes that's okay, but that you should just use version 8 or something.
Specifically for the SHA ones, right? Because if you look at the text, I think you even highlighted on the screen.
Yep.
Anybody who generates the same inputs should get the same output, right?
Yep. And
so
that's why
we're using a version, exactly. If we're using version 3 or version 5, that goes into those 5% scenarios where you're actually potentially sending this around, and it does have some logical.
Multiple parties may generate this from the same name, and they should therefore get the same result. Fair enough.
In this one, shoving it in there doesn't make a lot of sense, because now all of a sudden I did this, they don't know, they do it, now it's not equal. And I think database things pop up. I think alerts that pop up, weird application issues, don't do that. But if you just use version 8 and you use it in this context and everybody knows within your application, you're fine. So I can definitely add some, so the notes on that SHA-256 and the SHA there steer towards V8 for that use case. Got it.
Okay. Anything else from anyone else today? Corbin?
Oh, this has been great. Thank you.
Robert?
No, it's all good.
Carson?
Kirsten,
Brad?
thanks for keeping us honest on ABNF. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I put in a few issues and I typed them quickly, and sorry for my short and words with which may seem harsh, but I'm just trying to get these issues in the tracker.
Yes, thank you, Carson. I said Corbin, sorry. I did have one last thing. Jim, Lyos K came back to me. I did email him, and he said that Lyos K for the acknowledgments at the end is completely fine. That's what he's been going. It's in his
Okay.
handle since the beginning of time on the internet. That's everybody. Everything he has is Lyos K. Nobody needs to know his last name, so he's good with that. So
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm happy to call people whatever they'd like to be called.
Uh,
But it was just at the end. It looked with the one previous to it. It looked a little like there was maybe some garbling. So I was,
so yeah, exactly. Sergi's name is that's also his username, but his username is also his first and last name from what I can see. So I can leave it as is or add a space. But yeah, it's just
Okay.
handles for folks that
So
previous
other question
up
is
to this
whether or
point.
not we would be cleaning out this acknowledgement section of the text we had before.
That's a valid question. Like I said, when I moved from 4122 to the new doc and merged them together, I did not remove any text. If anything, I massaged it. So those acknowledgments were copied in, put there. Didn't know how to handle that.
IETF BIS documents have done both things of retaining the acknowledgments, rewriting them, all sorts of stuff, you know. I'll
I'm
send some
fine with
suggestion
leaving
here.
it.
I'll send some suggestion to this. We maybe don't need as much detail. But we should we should probably retain the names, if not the details.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like Ted and Professor Lartmouth can probably stay, and the other gentlemen and folks in there could probably just stay and then just remove the context because it's not even going to make sense in this document anyways.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to do. I was just going to basically leave the names in and say they helped with 4122 and then go on to the additional things. Okay. So we have, I'm going to close the meeting here now. We have another interim on basically in a month. And oh, that didn't become a URL either, did it? So February 16th, that did not work. No, that did not work. There we go. No, that's the wrong, still this wrong window. I can't get it in the right window. There we go. Thursday, February 16th, same time. It's a different Meet Echo URL, and I'll post an agenda to the list so that everyone's sure. And so the plan is that you're going to post this version 01, I guess it's going to be, in the next couple days, and we'll try to basically have another iteration. One thing that's really good is if every issue does have some proposed text, even if it's controversial, and then we can argue about it, and maybe the goal would be to, by the end of February, have a stable document that we could put in working group last call. Let me just ask if there is interest in meeting at IETF 116 in Yokohama, whether you think this work would benefit by having a wider audience, or really it's just nobody wants to get up in the middle of the night for a meeting across the Pacific.
I will comment that I have already purchased that one-day pass in the anticipation that we would have a meeting.
Okay.
Just to nail down any last items before we submit this, because I believe we're trying to submit it to IESG at the end of March. IETF happens. We have our 1 week change window beforehand. So we drop whatever draft 2, draft 3, whatever we're on there. We talk about it one last time and say, is there anything left before we submit it and it's out of our hands? That was my logic. And I went ahead and bought the ticket. If not, that's fine. But I'll be there.
So you intended to show up for the one day physically?
No, not physically. Online. Online.
Oh, okay. Online
yeah,
is you get the whole week for the 250. Yeah.
I forget what I got, but yeah, I was going to be there for at least whatever session we set up.
Okay. So if we do have a meeting, many of us will probably be remote. I believe I will be remote, but I haven't purchased any. I haven't committed yet to that. So We'll see.
I've bought tickets and everything for going in person, but I may be backing out of that and going virtual just because of infection concerns and stuff primarily.
Right. I just don't think I want to stay in a coffin hotel room and I can't afford a real one. So there you go. They're like, the regular price of that hotel is $500 a night, and the IETF price is $250 US, which is, you know, pretty expensive on a 10-day trip. So anyway, well, so any last words? We'll see you next month.
Is there anything that the community can do before the next meeting? Just like, is there anything that can be done by like external contributors?
Read the
like myself?
document, argue with the data tracker, and read the mailing list. Even if all you do is read the document and agree that the changes are good, that's valuable feedback. Otherwise, it's like an empty echo chamber, and we don't know if anyone's the difference between nobody read the document from nobody has any disagreement. So that would be great. Or if you have other other communities that maybe should be informed, even if all they say again is everything looks good to me, that's also valuable.
Yeah, I'll comment one last thing. Specifically from my perspective, Robert, I would like version 3 and version 4 are net new, extrapolated from what was in the previous document. Give me if somebody could please just give me a technical check. I did a lot of reverse engineering. I feel pretty good about the way the text describes the technical creation of those, but it is net new. So there's a chance that I did something wrong. So if somebody could look at version 3, version 4, version 3 and version 5, that would be super beneficial. That's the only thing that I want. And then obviously erratas. Did we fix the errata properly? Because I got all those trackers. I fixed them in draft 00, but just give it a second check and say yes on the forum. Errata looks like it's squashed. That's it.
I'll say I can certainly do that. If I remember correctly, that stuff is the generation. Are you talking about the actual code for generating the namespace stuff?
Just
it's
the
been
text.
a while since I looked at that.
Yeah, just the text. Make sure
Yeah, I can
just
take a
make
look
sure
through that.
it just looks good. Like if you look at a pseudocode or something, I got something I can send you, Robert. But you just I'll email you inside what I'm looking for out of that as a secondary check.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. That's all for me.
Fantastic. Bye-bye.
Thank you.